Our next speaker is Dr. Gilbert Lavoie. He's an MD who is a specialist in internal medicine and occupational medicine. His latest book, The Shroud of Jesus and the Sign John Ingeniously Concealed, was published in 2023 by Sophia Institute Press. In 2019, Dr. Lavoie and the late Tom D. Mahulla completed the organization of the photo collection of Vern Miller, the official scientific photographer of the 1978 Shroud of Turin research project. This collection is available worldwide at www.shroudphotos.com. Dr. Lavoie recently worked with the internationally known sculptor Pablo Eduardo to produce a three-dimensional replica of the image of the man of the shroud, and this is at Ave Maria University. Let's welcome Dr. Lavoie.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Joe, for introducing me. It's really a pleasure to be here with you because I know that you are all seekers of the truth, trying to understand the shroud and what it is. I started as a skeptic, and then I discovered a blood mark that convinced me that there was truly a man under this cloth, and it just started from there. And I've been doing this for about over 40 years now, and it's a great privilege to be with you today. Thank you very much. So let's start a medical scriptural study of the shroud, and what does this all mean? There are two events that took place on this cloth, and we're going to start with the first event, and that is the blood marks. It's a micrograph taken at the blood area of the chest wound, and you see that this is actually in between the threads that you see here of the shroud, magnified at 32 times magnification. These areas of blood that are sunk into the side, inside the threads. A lot of the other has been abraded away. I'm just going to, during this talk, I'm going to do a little talk. I'm going to read from my slides because I only have so much time and I got a lot of material to cover. So anyway, it has been chemically proven to be blood, and forensically it's human blood. The people who buried him saw this blood soak through to the back of the cloth as it was placed over the moist clots that were on the skin. I've done experiments on that. When you place cloth over moist clots, that's what you see. It actually comes right through to the back. The blood that we see on the cloth corresponds exactly to John's narrative of Jesus' passion. The blood marks in the shroud are the last blood flows from his body, and that's very important. The rest of his body was just actually covered with blood, and that dried. And so it's only the last blood flows that we see, the moist ones, that actually transfer to the cloth. The blood marks, the Jews considered this lifeblood, which is defined as the blood of atonement. I have a whole chapter on that in my book. It is Jesus' precious blood of atonement for our sins. That's what we see on the shroud, the blood of atonement for our sins. These blood marks were a natural event. Cloth coming in contact with moist blood marks. Now, this is the second event that took place on the shroud, and that is the image formation. And this is done at 64 times magnification at the area of the nose. And it's here we see there's no debris or anything on here, and all we see is these sort of yellowed threads, and in between each one of these threads is made up of many tiny fibers. They are less than half way less than half the diameter of the hairs on your head, and it is these little fibers that you see, these yellowed fibers right here, that actually give us the image. They are the building blocks of the image. If you want an area darker, you put in more. There are more of these, and if you want it lighter, there are less. It's like just like printing, more, if you want to you put in more dots, basically, to get an area that's darker. This fiber the colored fiber is only one fiber deep. It's amazing. If you take a pin and try to go penetrate that, you find there are no more yellowed fibers below that. Maybe in some places 2 fibers. And if you follow along, you'll see that it underneath the next thread it turns white immediately. That means there's no wicking of materials that are causing this. And heat, light, and acid can cause this. And actually it's what they call a dehydrative oxidation. That's what we're calling the yellow. It's sort of an aging of cloth. And so no one has reproduced this image on cloth at this microscopic level. It is unique in the world and continues to be investigated on how all of this happened. Now, the creation of the image, we know right away that this image is not made by human hands, just from our discussion here. And the question we'll look at is it a natural event or a supernatural event? We'll look at that as we go along. Confirming that the man of the shroud died in the crucified position. Here we have, this is what started me going on this subject, is that we have right here this blood mark that goes right along the arm and then off the image and forms a round pool here. The image is on his left elbow, but note that the off-image blood mark is on the right elbow of the man covered, the mirror image. Now this is this is where you can see it a little bit better. It runs uninterrupted off the image. The blood mark ends in a small pool. Now we did here is a full-size tracing of that blood mark, and we see that we place that tracing over a volunteer, and we actually see from the direct frontal view of the man, the off-image blood mark is not visible. Where is it? As we see, this is sort of a off-image blood mark was a contact process. The cloth came in contact with the moist blood clot on the back of the upper arm as the cloth was draped over the side of the body. Imagine the cloth is draped over the side, it's picked up on the side of the body. So now the shroud wasn't wrapped like this, but this is just there to show you what occurred. The origin of the blood flow started at the wrist, flowed down like a near vertical forearm and around the back of the upper arm. It collected into a round pool of blood on the underside of the upper arm. So you're washing dishes, and you say, my hands are wet, and you feel that water dripping down around your arm, down to underneath and you say, that's a real reality. And in the Mishnah, they talk about the people who are crucified, blood flows from the body of the crucified or drips from the body. And this is an example of that exact phenomena. So the off-image blood mark located at the left elbow in the cloth, what does this mean? It shows us that the man died in a position of crucifixion. The blood marks were made by a contact process, as we just mentioned. The cloth covered a three-dimensional body. Most of the blood marks really show height and width. This blood mark shows the third dimension depth, that we know that there's a three-dimensional man that was under this cloth. Now, the image was not made by a contact process. Why do we know that? We know that we have image here in the front, but we don't have any image on the back of the arm where we know the cloth actually was in contact with the skin. That means no debris or whatever was responsible for this image. Otherwise, we'd have a distorted image, and part of that image would be out where the blood mark is. And the image is not a result of a natural event. From the point of view of finding natural events, 125 years have gone by and no one has found a natural event to have caused this, number one. Number two, when you have a natural event, natural events are ubiquitous. They're universal. So whatever happened in the front should also happen in the back of the upper arm, because we know the cloth was touching that. So it is not a natural event. Okay, so here we have an interesting experiment. John Jackson asked me to come and see him. Oh, this is about 30 years ago now. A lot of time's gone by with this. And he asked me to help him with regard to understanding what a crucified man looked like on the shroud. He said, I'm going to have a couple of young men there, and so we're going to have swivels on the wrists. So I asked him I said, let's put a swivel on the feet as well, because I believe only one nail went through those 2 feet. And he said, sure, and we went ahead and we put the gentleman up on the cross, and he was just hanging there, and he was sort of balancing on this swivel, like balancing on one nail, and then zoom, he falls into this position. So the man is pushing his self upward. His left foot is over his right, causing him to lean to his right. This pushing upward takes the pressure off the arms and allows him to use his chest muscles to breathe in and out. His right arm is flexed at the elbow, causing the forearm to come nearly straight down from his crossbar. This is the exact position that caused the blood flow that resulted in the off-image blood mark that we just looked at. And if we put the foot over the left, he would fall the other direction. It's a mechanical thing, and it was just an awesome thing all of a sudden to realize this is how Jesus was on a cross. And the first time that's ever been done. So now, here is a man that's basically, if he's, when a person on a cross is pushing himself with his legs, and then he tires out, and so this is, there's no pushing up with the legs. He's exhausted. He's hanging from his arms. The body is central but lowered down with the knees. This would be the position of exhaustion or death. The left foot is over the right. In this position, he can only breathe by using the muscles between his chest and abdomen. In other words, his chest is out in an inspiratory position, and he can't expire because he can't use his chest muscles. That's why he has to push himself up to relax those. And so the only thing he's breathing with is his diaphragm. So the chest is in a fixed position. The inspiration caused by hanging. His airflow, which is tidal volume, is cut by 70%. His blood pressure is falling. He will die of asphyxiation once he can no longer lift himself by his legs. That's the normal way of dying from, and that's why they would break the legs of the crucified in order to have them go dearly. Jesus didn't die by, he died earlier by actually congestive heart failure, but I don't have time to get into that right now. So the creation of the image is not made by human hands. It's not a natural event. So we're going to make a big move here. Is this a supernatural event? And how do we define a supernatural event? What we call a supernatural event we call miracles. And John calls them signs, and Jesus calls them works. And some examples of those works is can I have some water, please? I just need a little water, if I may have. So the examples are marriage at Cana. Jesus changes water to wine. That's in our world, it's H2O, which is hydrogen and oxygen, changed to beautiful, wonderful wine. That's creation. That's a moment of glory, and glory is the manifestation of the power and presence of God in the world. He's the only one that creates. And so that's an event that's outside of our ordinary understanding of time and space. Another example is the raising of Lazarus. We know Lazarus was dead for 4 days. In medicine, we're worried about the brain when it doesn't have oxygen for 4 minutes. So you can imagine what that brain looked like. And when Jesus said, Lazarus, come out, in just that period of time, he recreated the entire body back to what it was, an event that is outside of our ordinary understanding of time and space. So now in the context of Jesus' life, our definition of a supernatural event is an event that is outside of our ordinary understanding of time and space. So let's keep that in mind. Oh, thank you so very much. Appreciate it. Oh, that feels great. Thank you very much.
Sure that isn't wine?
The best of wines. Okay, so Jesus makes it very clear why he does his works. And this is it. I'm just going to read this quickly. Philip said to him, Lord, show us the Father, and we will be satisfied. Jesus said to him, have I been with you all this time, Philip, and you do not know me? Whoever has seen me has seen the Father. How can you say, show us the Father? Do you not believe that I am in the Father and the Father is in me? The words that I say to you, I do not speak on my own, but the Father who dwells in me does his works. Believe me that I am in the Father and the Father is in me. But if you do not, then believe me because of the works themselves. So the works that Jesus did, he tells us point blank, these are very important so you know that I came from the Father, that I carry within me, I am the Son of God and the Father is in me. So it's very important, and he says it several times. Now, is the creation of the shroud image a supernatural event, a work of God, like changing water to wine? Let's see if we can answer that question, and we'll look at a few things and we'll investigate this further. We'll start with blood marks on the face. And I had this photograph sitting in my office, and I was in medical practice. And one day I said, you know, these blood marks, I wonder if they're coming out a little far. And so I said, so I took the picture home. It's the same size. It's the normal size of and the question is, did the blood marks in the hair, we see them, did the blood marks originate from the hair? So I did a cutout. I had my children, they were helping me out. It was great. And we did a cutout of the blood marks. The cutout of the blood marks of the face of the hair of the man of the shroud. The cutout was made from a full-size image of the shroud face. Now here's a volunteer. This volunteer is a man lying on his back, and he is in the horizontal position of burial. Keep this man's face in mind, because I want to tell you something about it later. But so then we took the cutout and we placed it over the face, and then paint was applied to the volunteer's face through each mark of the cutout. So when we take this off, the blood marks on the hair originated from the blood on his temples and cheeks. In other words, the blood was moist on his body and the cloth was placed over, it actually transferred right to the cloth. And so, just like off the left elbow, it went around the side of the side of the arm. Here we have it going around the face. So, the blood marks on the hair originated from the moist cloths that were on the face. So, what does all this mean? What it means here is that we have this phenomena that is hard to understand, and we have a man's, it's as if the image was made, as if the cloth actually stretched out, and the image was made in between the blood marks that were originally on his temples and cheeks. You see where I'm going? It was around, this cloth is stretched out, and here we have now an image of the face that doesn't have, here's the image of the face, and here are the blood marks in the hair. So as if the cloth is actually stretched out. Now the question is, we see here the blood marks are again in the hair. It looks like they're in the hair, but they actually originated on the face. Note the blood marks of the hair. How did they get there? Who stretched out the cloth? Where did the energy come from that produced the image? The observation points to an event of the image formation that is outside of our ordinary understanding of time and space, a supernatural event. Let's continue to sort of think in terms of those lines, but I have to tell you right now that I don't like doing this in front of a crowd, but I have to go to confession. And it's not a good thing to have to do, but this is it. At this point in my life when I was doing this work, I was fascinated by the fact that we had an image that we could not understand. And I was fascinated by the fact that we had all these blood marks that were telling us this was a crucified man, and that he was laid out in burial. But I have to tell you that nothing on this cloth convinced me that this was the moment of the resurrection. I just couldn't see that. I just had a dead man lying there. And so I have to tell you that I was wrong, because the following events occurred after I had done this particular experiment. The image of the raised man of the shroud. Now, here is the shroud face. The shroud face, as you see it, the black and white photo, negative image of the shroud, as you see it on the original cloth. Now, I was very excited because I had just taken a picture of this gentleman. Remember, he was lying down. And I thought that in those days, we'd get a photograph and you'd have a positive and a negative, in the envelope. Well, there I had the negatives, and I said, I thought this should look like the man of the shroud because this was a negative. And I was very disappointed because I was always a skeptic. I said, this is where the mistake is. This is where the problem is. This is really not a negative at all because this is a negative. And so I was really frustrated by the whole thing, started running through the rest of my negatives, and all of a sudden I came across this negative. And this negative with, this was no longer the bland look. See, there's light areas around the eyes, under the nose, and at the lips. This is just a bland look, but this was not. This had the shadows around the eyes, nose, and lips, just like we have in the shroud. But this is my same volunteer. I accidentally had taken his picture while he was sitting at my dining room table that same day, and I said, my gosh, this man is upright. It was an awesome moment in my life. It was so awesome I had to back out of the room because I felt that this man was upright. And so I got after I thought about that, and I got my composure back, and I went back into the room, and I started to do some other studies. And when you have light coming from above, like we have in this room, and like daylight and everywhere, you note that there's light areas under the pectoral muscles, like you see here, and between the fingers and under the hand, just like you see on the man of the shroud. So I thought, is there anything else that is consistent with an upright man? And I was like the elephant in the room. I says, my gosh, look at his hair, how it flows down his face. And you remember that his head is slightly tilted down. If you're tilted up, your hair is on your face, but if you start to tilt down your hair, the hair sort of falls away from your face. And that's what you have, the hair that falls to his shoulders and down his back. And then I compared that with a young lady. She's actually sit with her head up. You can see the nares of her nose. She's sit up. His head is tilted. And then you see the hair that flows down along his sides of his face. And for the back, we have the same thing. In fact, we have a little shadow down here, it's like we have here. The hair is just flowing down the back. So when somebody actually lays down, you see the hair, it just does this rather than this. With me, after taking care of hundreds and hundreds of patients, I help them to lie down on a table, on the examining table. Long hair, which is yellow, which could be sticky or whatever it is, all long hair falls down and then it flattens out. So we have the gravity that's telling us something. We have light, it's telling us one thing, and then we have gravity that's telling another with regard to the hair. So this is the shroud. You see his hair falls right down to his shoulders. This is the sculpture that we were working on. And you can see the shadow, how it comes on like this, and you see the shadow along the face, how it comes down like that. So this is the work we had done. We have this sculpture in the exhibition room here that you can see it, of the bust of the sculpture, I should say. Now, here we have a man who is standing. This is actually a drawing, but it's a very good drawing. And you see the hair falls down to the shoulders and down the back. And you see the form of the back of the body of this man. So, and that's the expected form that we would see of the anatomy of the back of the body. Now we take this man and we place him on a glass plate. And therefore, you're looking at him, you're down here looking at him, and he's on the glass plate. And so you see the weight of his body flattens out his back and his buttocks and so forth. And so the man is lying, we're viewing him from below, large areas of flattening. This is how the back of a person looks in an autopsy room. The weight of the body flattens the normal and anatomical form. So now we compare here the man of the shroud. We don't have any of those kinds of areas of flattening of the buttocks or the flattening we have. He looks like this man who is upright, the normal anatomy that you expect. As you're just sitting there in a chair, I mean, your body is changed. So now it doesn't have the normal anatomy. So here what we have is a man who's an image of an upright man whose hair falls to his shoulders and whose feet do not touch the ground. This is what we have. So we have a raised body, and who raised this body? Who brought the energy to bring this image onto this cloth? This is another event outside of our ordinary understanding of time and space. We have graciously wonderful people that are trying to figure out and understand how this has happened, but they're really struggling, and I really admire all of the people that are doing that. Dr. Fonte, for example, doing some very hard work to understand that phenomenon. I think it's a great thing to do. But we don't have the full answer of how this event occurred, although it's wonderful to try to understand it so we can show that this indeed is a supernatural event in the long run. So now, is this a supernatural event? I would say from the data we have in front of us, yes. It is a sign, a work of God. Now, just to go through this a little more carefully, it is of great interest that the maximal optical visual densities of the front and back shroud images are nearly the same. The weight of the front on the front of the body was only the weight of the cloth. Unlike the front of the body, the back of the shroud cloth bears a weight of a 175-pound man. That means the weight of the body in the supine position likely played no role in the formation. Furthermore, this 175 pounds of weight should have flattened the hair and some of the rounded anatomy of the backside of the body when placed in a supine position, but we do not see the expected flattening on the shroud image. Instead, we see the hair flow and the rounded anatomy of the back of the man who is upright. Since my first encounter with the shroud in 1978, physicians have noted that what we are seeing in the shroud is early rigor mortis. That's a temporary post-mortem stiffness of muscles, I agree with that. I agree with what they said as a physician. Like hair, the skin and subcutaneous fat of the body do not undergo rigor mortis. Only muscles undergo rigor mortis. So regardless of the stage of rigor mortis, when Jesus was laid on his back, large areas of skin and subcutaneous fat of the back would have flattened immediately. But we do not see this flattening on the shroud. In conclusion, the upright position of the image of the man of the shroud was established by anatomical observations of hair and body form. What happens to long hair if one is upright as opposed to being supine? What happens to a body form if one is upright as opposed to being supine? There are no hypotheses presented here. These are observations, are simply what is evident. More on the forensics of the image and the sculpture can be found in the handout. So I've given you a handout that you can find out more about all this. Now, so here is the image of the shroud. This is the work we had done with Pablo Eduardo. This is in this sculpture right now is at the St. John Paul II National Shrine in Washington, D.C. You can go there to see it if you wish, and it just shows the what we've done. You'll see the bust down in the room, not the whole thing. Upright but not standing. Where to look for answers? I had an upright man that wasn't standing, and I wanted him to be standing. He said, "Why isn't he standing?" And so I didn't know what to do with this upright man. So I said, the only place I could go and look for this is to look at the Bible. And thank you very much. I'm running out of whatever. A great wine. So I looked in the in Luke and Matthew, and I just checked them all four Gospels. But it was only when I came to John that I found this following statement. And when I am lifted up from the earth, will draw all people to myself. And I said, my gosh, that's a definition of exactly what I'm looking at on the shroud. However, right underneath it said, well, this is how he was predicting his crucifixion. However, when I started to really investigate this with commentators that are very well known, like Raymond Brown, the culmination of Jesus' career is when he is lifted up toward heaven in death and resurrection to draw all men to himself. So what it comes down to when you start really investigating this, to be lifted up in the Gospel of John includes the crucifixion, resurrection, and ascension to the Father. Otherwise, without the resurrection and ascension, we wouldn't have even known who this carpenter was, who was crucified. So this is a Nation's Catholic Bible. So that is what being lifted up means in the Gospel of John. Now, after finding the lifted man, I realized that I had no place to go other than to delve even deeper into the Gospel by placing what I forensically observed in this cloth into the context of Jesus' life. A door opened into new insights as to what John had written about. I basically spent I went to graduate school for 2 years at a seminary, and then I spent about 10 years reading and studying the Gospel of John. And so I'm going to share this with you, what's going on here. So if John knew there was an image, why didn't he say so? He couldn't say so because he was a Jew, and he knew that if he had said one single word about this image, it would have been destroyed, because his colleagues, his countrymen, that would be considered an object of idolatry. Anything with hand or foot upon it would be destroyed and thrown into the Dead Sea. You read about that in the Mishnah. And so he couldn't do it. He had to keep it a secret. But yet he tried later on. He actually tells about all the blood marks you see, the passion you see on the shroud, you see in John's Gospel. And also he's telling us, you'll see what's going on. I'll go on and mention what he actually does. Does John give us information to tell us about the sign, the work of God that we see on the shroud, the raised body of Jesus? And let's look. Yes, John does by his connecting the tomb narrative to the death and temple narratives. These connections bring to light a sign that Jesus predicted 2,000 years ago. And so John tells us the importance of signs. Now Jesus did many other signs, in other words, works in the presence of the disciples, which are not written in this book, but these are written so that you may come to believe that Jesus is the Messiah, the Son of God, and that through believing in him, life has a name. So basically, John is saying the same thing. Jesus is saying, here are the works, and the works are here to tell you about the fact that Jesus has really come, died, and whatever. So let's see, how does John connect these narratives and John's tomb story? What did he see and what did he believe? Okay, now we know the story that that Mary Magdalene has come early in the morning, finds this tomb to be opened, and runs back to John the beloved disciple, and Peter, and they run to the tomb, and Peter goes in first, and then John goes in, and he said, and he saw and believed. And of course, we believe that for all our lives, and what I believe as well, he saw the linen cloths there, and he also saw that the tomb was empty from the point of view of the body, and so he believed that Jesus resurrected. However, there's something very interesting about this same place. He says, "For as yet they did not understand the Scripture that he must rise from the dead." So in the very same time, he's telling you that he doesn't know he rose from the dead. So he can't be talking about he believed that he resurrected. And a lot has been written about this to try to understand why this sentence is there. But nobody has been really able to do that. So then what did he see and what did he believe? Okay, so to answer those questions, let's start by looking at what we call the Jewish principle of Gezerah Sava, according to which passages in which the same words occur should be interpreted with reference to each other. In other words, you have words in one paragraph that are similar to words in another paragraph. They should be connected. They do this with Old Testament to New Testament, but John does it within his own gospel. Now, as for what John saw, tomb narrative, he connects the tomb narrative to the death narrative to tell us what John saw. And he uses, I'm just going to go over, he saw and believed. It connects it with he saw and believed in the death narrative. And what does he do in the death narrative to tell us what he saw? So he describes the death scene. But when they came to Jesus, they saw that he was already dead. They did not break his legs. So we have a man that hasn't got broken legs. Instead, the soldiers pierced his side with a spear, and blood and water came out, and this is what we have in the shroud. As for the body position of Jesus, John is describing him while he is still on the cross. He would have been raised upright, his hair would fall to his shoulders, and his feet would not touch the ground. Does John's full description of the death scene sound familiar? Indeed, except for crossed hands, it is the inaccurate description of what we saw on the shroud. That's what he saw. He's telling us what he saw. Now, as for what John believed, this is the tomb narrative, he connects it to the temple narrative. He saw, and again, it's believed, Scripture, rise from the dead. Temple narrative, raised from the dead, believed in Scripture. So he connects these two, and what does he want to say about what he believed? So, you know, the temple narrative, chapter 2, it's the clearing, the clearing of the temple. And Jesus is not happy, so he gets in there and he says, "Take these things out of here. Stop making my Father's house a marketplace." And the Jews of authority said, "What sign can you show us for doing this?" Well, I always thought it was because he was interrupting the business that was going on and so forth. And but I realize now that what was really happening. He says, "Stop making my Father's house a marketplace." So for the first time in the gospel, right at the beginning, he is telling the world that he is the Son of God. And so the Jews in authority said, "What sign can you show us for claiming to be the Son of God?" And you find in chapter 5, he does the same thing. He talks about the Father, and they want to kill him because it's considered something that you just don't do. And so he, by claiming to be the Son of God, blasphemy. So the sign that Jesus gives them, destroy this temple, and in 3 days I will raise it up. And John makes it clear, but he was speaking not of the temple that was there, but he was speaking of the temple of his body. So Jesus is saying very clearly, this destroyed body that we see on the shroud will be raised up. Very clear. So what do we have here? What sign can you show us for doing this? In Jesus' response to their question, Jesus predicts a visual sign that will show everyone that he is the Son of the Father, the Son of God. Destroy this temple, and in 3 days I will raise it up. In the tomb, John saw the sign that Jesus predicted. At that moment, he believed that Jesus is the Son of God. It was his epiphany. Now, so what we have here is the the image of, again, of an upright man whose hair falls to his shoulders and his feet do not touch the ground. We have an event, who raised this man, how did this occur, and so forth. And it's another, it shows basically, as I said before, a supernatural event. So what does all this mean? It is only through the John's witness that we know the meaning of the image of the man of the shroud. It's through what he tells us. And this is what he does. The raised man of the shroud is the sign that Jesus predicted 2,000 years ago in the temple of Jerusalem. Destroy this temple, and in 3 days I will raise it up. This sign tells the world that Jesus is the Son of God and the bread of life. And I have a full chapter on how it tells us it's also the bread of life in my book. And also you can refer to it. Now, we humanity lifted Jesus upon a cross, and God raised him up in resurrection and ascension to himself. The image of the raised man of the shroud is the reflection of his hour of glory, his crucifixion, death, resurrection, and ascension to his Father. So on this cloth is the reflection of the final event of the whole story of salvation, our salvation. Thank you very much. I may just say one thing here. Please be sure to read my 2 additional presentations, which are the extensions of this presentation: The Raised Man of the Shroud, The Forensics of the Sculpture, the Sign, and John's Astonishing Story, Jesus is the Son of God and the Bread of Life. And they are actually, I gave you a handout. There's a QR that's there, and you can get to these right away and see those, the extension of this lecture. Please see the bust of the sculpture called The Sign in the exhibit hall. And for more information, the Shroud of Jesus and the Sign John ingeniously concealed is available through Amazon, and that's also a QR there in your handout. It's all information. So anyway, I'm glad to take any questions, if I may. Yes?
Do you think there are coins on the eyes through all your research?
I knew Father Philos very well. He was a great guy. We took pictures together in Turin in 1978. I have to say to you that I don't talk about the coins or use it in my book, but he did some wonderful work. He was a dedicated man. Al Adler and I, who is a scientist, we got along very well. He was a chemist, and we had a great time for 15 years. We both said, well, maybe there's something there that's true about that. And then, of course, other people, it's just one of those things you can't really see for sure, but it could be or not. I don't really know. So that's why I don't get into it. I just deal with what you can actually see. Yes?
Well, first of all, I want to tell everyone it is a wonderful exhibit downstairs. Don't miss it. The other thing is that earlier in your talk, you were talking about how the blood was on the side of the face.
Right.
But then it evolved and you realized that the hair came forward. So have you reconsidered that possibly the blood could be on the hair now that the hair is forward and not back?
No, there's when you have, these are clear, beautiful pictures. You have hair, you can have that kind of thing when you have pressure on the back of the head to have, to show those blood marks. But when you have hair that's falling down like this, people have tried to do that experiment. Even John Jackson, he came to my house trying to do that very kind of experiment, what you're just talking about. It doesn't work. Okay?
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Do you see any significance with your theory on the Man of Sorrows iconography where he's raised up?
Yeah, the Man of Sorrows, yes. I mean, that's all over Europe. It's an older thoughts and concepts. I believe that certain people at some point in the past believed that he was upright. Yes. Yes.
Are you saying, I'm asking for clarification of it, are you saying that when John saw and believed, he saw the image?
Yes. Yes, and he was in the perfect position. He was there with, he was there in the temple. He heard what Jesus said. He was there at the cross. He saw Jesus the way he was. with his hair falling down and what he is. He was there at the burial, and that would have changed the position of the hair, the body, and the whole thing. And then he was there at the tomb, and what is he seeing at the tomb? He's seeing the hair that's falling down like he saw at the, in crucifixion, and he's seeing that the blood that was on his face is now in his hair. He's seeing a very unusual thing. He's seeing what Jesus predicted, that he's been raised up. Yes?
You just said he was there at the burial.
I'm sorry?
What's your evidence that John was at the burial?
What's my evidence is that he was there right through the crucifixion, and that's I think if he had the courage to be there, he was the only one, he would very likely be at the burial. Evidence, you're right. Maybe I'm making an assumption, but I think it's a good one. And I don't make assumptions, but I'll make this one because I think it's a good assumption. Yes?
Dr. Lavoie, Joe, I'm okay, I'll project. Wonderful talk. Very brief preface to my question. I know everybody's fascinated, I'm on social media, about the hovering issue and your evidence that lack of pressure. But if he were to be vertical when the image occurred, it would seem to me logically the shroud by gravity would collapse, and yet Scripture tells us it was flat on the stone, which would suggest to me, and that's my question, that based on the data you gave us, he didn't have the weight of gravity on him, that he would have been hovering in the shroud supine, horizontal, for whatever instant of time prior to him blasting out his life. Would that logic?
It's a wonderful question, and this is asked all the time. What you're trying to do, and I think I've been trying to do it for 40 years, is trying to find out the mechanics of how this all happened. Yeah, so we don't really know. We don't know the mechanics of how this happened. So what we have to do is this is a little bit of faith and so forth. Do we believe that Jesus turned water to wine? Do we believe that Jesus rose Lazarus? Can we believe that Jesus, the God, put an image on that shroud in a way that we can't even understand? I can't figure out the mechanics. We can have hypotheses of the mechanics, but we can't understand how that happened. I have no answer for that.
Well, just to follow, wouldn't the evidence suggest that he was horizontal hovering, not vertical? Because if he's vertical, the shroud collapses. It's no longer laid on the tomb pretty when they...
Yeah, but we don't see... But you're trying to find out the mechanical, and that he certainly could have been there. It could be flat, or it could be in a clump. I don't know what it was, but if it's flat, God just says, I'm changing water to wine. I'm putting an image on there, and I want the people to know that my Son, the Father, did this, glorifying Jesus, that my Son is not lying in death, but I am raising him up in life and bringing him back in ascension to me, the Father. We have to make that move. Otherwise, where's our faith? Yes.
I appreciated the way you started this with talking about the two events, the blood, and then the image, the actual image and how it is constructed, because I've been guilty many times of bringing up the shroud, and they immediately say, oh, that was debunked in the 1980s. And then I try to defend the carbon-14 dating and those issues. But I have changed it now because the most important thing is that this is not a natural image. And so they begin to realize that something is going on that we can't explain through nature. And then they seem to be more open to understand these other aspects that define the shroud as the true cloth of the burial cloth of Christ.
I agree. Yes. Thank you. Yes.
Annette, wait. Annette, wait. Your voice is too low otherwise.
Oh, all right, thank you. Can you tell me about the blood flows, especially on the arm? It seems to me that they're going down, instead of going up, as they probably should be if they were dry when he was put into the shroud, and then if there were plasma around those blood flows. And then I have a second quick question. I keep wondering about Dr. Petra Soons with his little plaque under the chin that said Abba, and that seems to have disappeared. No one seems to mention that image under the chin of Jesus.
Okay, quickly, I don't know about Abba, it's not something I've studied. I know of Dr. Soons, but I haven't. But the main thing is, what we have on there is these blood flows turned into blood clots. And when you have blood clots, they put out serum. And that's why you see these little areas of serum in certain blood clots on the body. And I did a full experiment on that. And it's in one of the chapters in my book. If you're interested in following that, you could read my book on that particular thing. Those blood clots were not dry. They were moist. And otherwise, they wouldn't have gotten on the cloth. The ones, if you was with me in an emergency room, you see somebody come in and with an injury of their head, the body is covered with blood, okay? And I thought this guy had a massive injury. It was just an intern, and it was just a little tiny cut that he had on his head. The head blood bleeds profusely, and so Jesus bled tremendously from that, number one. Number two, he was scourged. He bled tremendously from that. All that blood dried, most of it, except for the excoriations and places where he's been. We can get into all kinds of detail with this, but you can read the book and find out a lot about those details. And the fact is that he died. He lost a tremendous amount of blood, and finally he died in congestive heart failure because he had a rapid heart. And he went into heart failure. He went into kidney failure, and then he went into liver failure, and then he went into heart failure and died. That's why the water came from his chest and whatever. But anyway, I hope that helps you.
That will have to be the last question. You can answer, if you go to the hallway, if you have any other questions for Dr. Lavoie, you can
more?
check with him out there in the hallway.
Oh, okay, we're done. Thank you.
Excellent presentation.
Pardon?
Excellent presentation. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.